Welcome to the Yang Gang Roundtable. We are a basic income advocacy podcast. It is Friday, July 24th, 2020, and we are fortunate enough to have three members of Basic Income UK here with us. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves now, if you would please.
Okay, my name is Barb Jacobson. I coordinate Basic Income UK and have been doing this since 2013. There was a European Citizens Initiative about basic income, which we formed to support. And we've been going from there. There's also the UBI Lab Network, which has been forming more local groups, and the Basic Income Conversation, which has been coordinating research and some of the kind of national political activity about this. Maggie?
Okay, my name is Maggie Gordon-Walker. I'm part of a fairly newly formed Basic Income Southeast, our objective being particularly to get a basic income trial in Brighton and Hove. So we have a petition that was due to be debated yesterday, but it's been held over to October. It's I think the eighth or maybe now ninth city in the UK to call for a basic income trial. Obviously, we would like to just introduce basic income, but it maybe we have to jump through these hoops first. I also head up an organisation called Mothers Uncovered, which supports mums to get used to their new life as parents, and a lot of them struggle considerably with what they're going through, and I think a basic income would be really beneficial for them.
Yeah, hi, my name is Martin Osborne. I am also in Brighton and Hove, and I'm actually on the City Council in Brighton and Hove. So with Maggie and with a few others, we co-founded the Basic Income Southeast group. So we're pushing for that trial, but we will hopefully be pushing for other trials in the southeast of England as well. My aim sort of as part of the group was to be working with them, advising them about the council, about how we can get things through into local government. So we had a petition that we started, and as Maggie said, it was going to be debated yesterday, but we will fully debate it in October because there's been the delay. But hopefully we think that it will pass. And then other sort of things that I'm involved in, I'm also sort of involved with the Green Party. So that's the party that I represent as a councillor in Brighton and Hove. And I'm also on the working group that was working on the proposal that we had for last year's manifesto. So the 2019 manifesto for the general election, we had the sort of first fully costed proposal in any of the UK parties for basic income. So I was part of the group that was working on that as well.
All right, and before we move on, Richard is about to join us here.
Oh, good. All right, well, before Richard joins us, we'll introduce ourselves to you. Fantastic to meet you all. My name is Shale Riley. I am the founder, one of the producers of the show. And, I do the editing, some of the technical stuff. We have Ariel, who's been with us from the very, very beginning. Why don't we, Ariel, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ariel, and I'm the one who invited you all here. Great to have you. And I have a YouTube channel called Revolutionary Thinking, which I think it's funny because, ironically, the U.S. was founded through a revolution between England, but we've completely lost our way. Now I think we need a new revolution of not fighting against the tyranny of ignorance. And I think that universal basic income is part of that revolution, like a financial revolution to unshackle people from financial chains. But I was thinking, and also a revolution in the way our education system is going on. And I think worldwide, because the world has changed so much. And I have a Twitter, Ariels_Armada. And also I love things that fly, like drones and helicopters and planes. So I have an Instagram called Ariels_Aerials. That's ARIELS_AERIALS. That's me.
Thank you, Ariel. So, Faye.
Hi.
Oh, hi. Welcome. Faye Koo is here.
Are you talking to Faye Doney or Faye Koo?
I was talking to Faye Doney, but I realized that you're here now. You weren't showing. You just showed up for me. Zoom.
Go ahead, other Faye. Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys introduce yourselves, please. Yeah.
I'm the other Faye.
Yeah.
I actually am in East Texas Arboretum right now, which is in Athens, Texas. It was about a 40-minute drive from my home in Palestine, Texas. And that's where you'll find me at on Twitter at Palestine Math, PALESTINEMATH.
Great.
Right. So my name is Faye, as well, Faye Doney, and my Twitter handle is @TisDoney, TISDONEY. We do this. We introduce our handles. But yeah, I would say I'm just trying to work on as many different things to help find actionable items for our country to move forward. I've been doing a lot of research on consent culture, which we lack a lot of. I've been a nomadic activist. So I've been traveling the US for about a year and a half. And I've really seen a lot of things on the ground level. I pick up trash while I travel. I let some people sleep in my truck sometimes if they have nowhere to go. Just trying to show humanity first, proof of concept kind of thing. So, but yeah. Next.
May I also introduce this person who's walking around with me, who's also Yang Gang with us?
Sure.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, my friend.
I'm Daniel Arizon, and I'm with USA Jobs Factory on Twitter and AmericanJobsFactory.com, creating the greatest American business ever.
Oh, we know
And
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
that works for us.
We know you. You've been on the show. Good to see you.
Yeah, Daniel drove out from Fort Worth, which is
Didn't
like
recognize you.
like a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
That's where one of the
I grew
guys
up
in my
here,
music
so-
group is. Fort
Awesome.
Worth. That's crazy.
Okay.
And so who's next here?
Angelo.
Angelo?
Hello, my name is Angelo. I'm a UBI activist here in Arizona. I sit on the board with the Humanity Forward Arizona. I'm also a member of the National Yang Gang board, now named Humanity First Movement. You can find me on Twitter at Hellion Hellfire, my old musical stage name.
Great.
I think we still have Sheridan, and then Richard has just joined us. So welcome, Richard. We'll have you introduce yourself after Sheridan, if Sheridan is with us.
Oh, I am. I was just
All right.
giving you your timeshare.
I never know because your camera's off. Thank you.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't have a great camera. But I am Sheridan, hailing from New Mexico, great state of New Mexico. I'm a small business owner who has been unfortunately shackled with the current crisis, and a basic income would definitely fix almost every problem. So it's definitely crucial here in New Mexico.
Thank you, Sheridan. And welcome to the show, Richard. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Richard High. I'm part of the board for Basic Income UK, one of the founder members of Basic Income Southeast, who, along with Maggie Gordon-Walker and Martin Osborne, who are also on the call, we've set up a petition calling on Brighton Council, City Council, to run a basic income pilot in the city, and that will be debated at the full council meeting in October. I'm just here as an observer, actually, really. So Maggie and Martin, I think, and Barb are going to kind of carry this conversation for us. But thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. I mean, and the more the merrier. I'm sure you have more to contribute than you say, but
well, I'm just about to go for my tea.
We're just ordinary people who believe that basic income is a right that everyone should have. We're all just very unpretentious here. So thank you for joining us.
Hey,
Oh.
if I could jump in. My
Yeah.
name is Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy, gosh, I skipped you. Sorry.
I'm a UBI activist
Yeah.
in just south of St. Louis, Missouri. I'm the co-producer of this show and the co-founder of Restoring American Families PAC. We are a PAC, a political action committee focused on supporting conservatives running on a UBI platform.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Nice to meet you, Jeremy.
Always skip somebody. So with that all out of the way, we're all introduced. I'm just going to open the floor for discussion. Let's talk about our different UBI advocacy styles, communities, and beliefs. So,
just first of all, I wanted to say how amazing it is to watch the Andrew Yang movement grow, and the basic, and with that, the basic income movement, and to see so many people from all over the United States. That it's not just, my dad was in New Mexico. I'm from Ohio, mainly. I was born in California near Berkeley. And I lived near Washington, D.C., and I also spent some time in New Hampshire and in Boston. So, it's a real thrill, actually, to see some, people from so many different places on the call, for sure.
it's very heartening to see people from all over the world that know who Andrew Yang is and hold him in high esteem, because he's definitely, obviously, we wouldn't be here without him. He's the focal point that rallied us all together. And though he did not win the 2020, presidential nomination, he has had an impact that will be more lasting than probably the person who did. So we're here for that. So thank you, Andrew Yang, if you happen to hear this.
So we've, as I said, we've been going at Basic Income UK since 2013, but really in the last sort of, I guess, 6 months. No, how long has it been now? I've really started to lose track of time.
Time is a funny thing this year.
Yeah. But so there've been, I think, probably about 12 new local groups set up, or more than that, 16, I don't know. And then we're also just starting to organize by sector. So UBI Lab Women will be having their launch meeting next week on Wednesday, and UBI Lab Youth has launched. And so there'll be other, I'm sure there'll be other UBI labs forming, and also basic income groups. So that's, plus we have, I think the other thing that's actually really helped us this year is that there's a new initiative called the Basic Income Conversation, which has been formed through a progressive think tank called Compass. And they've been working very hard to kind of coordinate academic research about basic income, and also this kind of surging interest by national politicians in basic income, and try to sort of see if that can be kind of coordinated into some kind of action in Parliament. So that's been kind of a very quick précis of our story in the last sort of few months.
Just picking up. Oh, sorry, I think you'd finished.
Go for it.
I was just going to say, so picking up what Barb said, it's maybe 5 months, I think, since lockdown in the UK. So we had planned a sort of a launch for Basic Income Southeast in Brighton towards the end of March. Now I know for a fact, because I've organised many events, that we would have probably struggled. I think Martin will back me up here, to get more than about 20 people in the room, I would think, because there's so many other things to do. But because it moved online, it then was recorded, and then it becomes a public record for other people to see. And at the same time, there was a massive explosion in all the activists from all around the UK coming together in different groups. And as Bob said, a massive amount of political interest. So we had Rishi Sunak, our councillor, kind of rebuffing the petition that had, 100,000 at least signatures. Yeah. But that didn't stop us. There's kind of more and more each week. There's somebody else has written an article, or there's another petition, or boom, 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 boom. And it's like people are not letting this go away. And sort of various people in the public eye that we know in the UK kind of keep coming forward to support it. And the movement's just getting bigger, as far as I can see.
No, the government keeps having to answer questions about basic income. All right. So it's, if it wasn't the original emergency basic income thing, then now it's the The Scottish government has come out with a feasibility study about doing 4 pilots in Scotland. That's being pushed. The Scottish National Party carries on asking questions. And recently, the Department of Work and Pensions Committee in Parliament did a consultation asking, which included, it was supposed to be about the future of work, but then they included questions about basic income. And this is after only 2 years ago, they dismissed it out of hand. So yeah, so it's been quite an exciting time.
How do you guys reach the most amount of viewers, or like reach the most amount of people? Because I feel like we struggle getting our message out here in America. Like, what's your guys' strategy? You've been doing it a lot longer.
I wish I could say that there was like an amazing strategy that we worked out, in a back room over, with smoke and mirrors and whatnot. It's really just been kind of anarchy in the UK, really. These groups have popped up. They've been pressing their local politicians. We've been, recently there was a really great letter that came out by, from the Musicians Union and various other artists. And right before that, the group Massive Attack released a video with Guy Standing speaking, which was really, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's been really amazing. So we've just kind of managed just through our own energy. And it also, actually, I have to say, it's really helped having a few people around the country who are actually, paid some money to do this work, that it's not been totally reliant on volunteers. Obviously, we have a lot of there's been a lot of voluntary effort, but I just feel like we've been kind of turbocharged by the fact that, we've got like 1 full-time and about 3 or 4 part-time people who do get some money to do this work and aren't, we're not just simply reliant on volunteers and people just kind of picking up time in between things. So yeah, so that's been, again, not really so much a strategy, but just kind of the circumstances that we've been in.
Twitter, though, I would say is probably the most immediate. And obviously the UK being so much smaller, you kind of feel you've got a handle on everyone in the UK via Twitter. As you were all doing your Twitter handles earlier, I'm M. Gordon Walker. I don't know, Martin, what do you think? What's the best way?
I think that the issue is that the people who will benefit the most from a basic income are the ones that are probably least have least capacity to engage. Yeah. So it's probably about going towards them communities and really using sort of community organizing skills. So ideally, you would have community organisers that would be going around the country. So I would be interested to hear from Faye Doney there about going around the country and exploring and meeting people, because I think that's probably the best way to do it. And in terms of the basic income conversation, they were trying to collect stories and then basically use them stories. So it's not all about this of the economic affordability and asking technical questions. It's more about what would you do with the money if you had it? How would that change your life? And I think compiling all them stories and more sort of effectively case studies is a more effective way of really reaching people's hearts as well as their heads. So I would think that would be the best way to do it. But how can we really get out to communities? And it's been very difficult during lockdown to actually talk to people. Again, the people who need it the most, often the ones that are digitally excluded as well. So they mightn't be able to afford a good Wi-Fi connection and be able to come online. So it's I think that the strategy going forward is really need to be, how can we reach those that need it the most?
I think Martin's absolutely right. So I was just going to say as well that there's a perception. It's the same with you. If you're doing anything to do with the environment, it's seen as being a middle class issue, even though obviously we all live on the planet. So it's everybody's issue. It's the same thing. As Martin said, the people that need it the most are probably suspicious of the people who are working for it as kind of do good and middle class people. And it's not for the likes of them. It's just like, yes, it is. It's entirely for the likes of you. You're the ones that are going to benefit the most, but it's very hard trying to engage, as Martin said. I mean, I just anecdotally had a conversation with a woman from a very deprived area here in Brighton. And when I just chatted to her, because I know her, she could understand it. But I think if she'd received something through the post or seen something online, that wouldn't have appealed to her in the way that me, who knew her, talking to her did.
I would say being on the ground level, I've been doing a lot of investigation into the problems, and like I've interacted with countless people who are on the streets, you know, like a lot of people. It's a lot. But you know, I also met women in women's shelters and stuff, and it like just talking to them at that level has been helpful, but they're so over with trying to take care of their basic needs that they can't even think about anything related to this, you know. So it's like we it's good for them to hear about it, but I don't even know if they'll vote, you know, because they don't even have the mental capacity, the mental bandwidth to even deal with it, you know. So my personal opinion is I think we need to get on Netflix with the UBI movement. If we can pull that off, I think we've like gotten golden, because that's the most eyeballs. That's my opinion. I don't know how we get there.
Yeah, do you have any ideas about a format?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of things.
No, please continue, I would say.
I do hear Netflix will take anything.
Like what kind of
well,
yeah, well, what sort of content would you
okay.
put on Netflix in brief?
Okay, so I mean, you would need data, obviously, investigative, maybe like have interviews, maybe get all the other countries together that have gotten this UBI movement started, get them also interviewed to like be like, okay, this is not just a singular area thing, you know, and you address the counterpoints that we get the most, you know, but you make it emotional. So you get people who have their like really pulling stories. I mean, I got some pulling stories. I mean, I've already started writing it down, you know. But I think if we pair that all, because people are very visual, and we got documents for days, right? We got all these podcasts for days, but it's not like summarized. And I think that's the problem. And I think that's why we need Netflix, to be honest. But I think it would, you know, if you just ask people for their content, because people have stuff, and you know, I think it would really do a lot.
We need a documentarian, I think, to do a good documentary. Then, you know, is what
Have
you're
you guys
describing.
heard of the Bootstraps film? I'm just looking.
I have not. What is it?
Yeah, it's a film actually. They managed to fund a few people to in the US actually with a basic income, and they followed their stories. Just trying to get their link up actually. Is it docu-series? Right. Sorry, I'm just trying to. It's not actually coming up in my.
That's okay.
But yeah, Conrad Shaw and his partner, I think her name is Dila, is doing it. Documentary.
But in the meantime, the UBI Lab network, Bob just shared the link. They've sort of compiled all of the different sort of results and different stories that they've heard from people. So, and there's I think 17,000 or so. There's a huge amount there. So it's a way of how can you collect all the data, integrate it into sort of like a big spreadsheet, and then people can then go on almost a map, and then they can zoom in on their local area and they can see people who are like them. And if you could get a picture with them or like an interview with them, it's sort of, you've got the data there that you can begin to explore. Obviously there's sort of there's issues with data protection, and you know you can't just use people's data to exploit it. But if you just build up that big network, like for example the petitions in the UK, when they get lodged into the government, there's a sort of a heat map of where people have signed it in different parts of the country. So that's also a very useful thing, that if you had a big petition and you really channeled that and got people to engage with that, you can then look at different areas and different hotspots in the country which are particularly supportive or particularly not supportive, and then you can target your efforts in them sort of areas. But also, I think there was a German film as well that was looking into basic income, and I've forgotten what the name of it was, but that was a few years ago. So some sort of theatre, music. I'm sure there's people who are in the arts who would be happy to support some movement, and maybe you might take Andrew Yang himself to maybe get them contacts to really get them mobilized. But getting that would be really, really powerful, I think.
We have someone who is on our show sometimes named Kiko, and she is a member of the, I think it's called the Hudson Valley Arts Council, where I'm from. She lives pretty close to me. And you know, she might have some of the connections that you're describing. As far as the data, there's a person, Scott Santons, who you may know of. He's a UBI expert and advocate with quite a lot of data, quite a lot of theories and hypotheses, and quite a lot of interesting ideas. And talk to him
Also,
about that if we want to,
Shale, if we're talking, a lot of times, just the data isn't in, you can have like all the data, the logic and the reason in the world. But what I've found out is that if it doesn't connect with people on an emotional and personal level, like it's not that powerful.
Yeah,
I watched this video about like the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. So a lot of times it's really amazing. It's like if you find a common ground somewhere with a person who disagrees with you, and then you try to go into talk about what you're trying to do, it's a much better way than just meeting the people head on. I put a very powerful video on persuasion here in the chat, and it's how, like, do you guys from the UK all know Mr. Rogers? Like,
I do, yeah.
American children's television.
Yeah.
From the 80s.
So,
I grew up on him. If you're a young millennial or old Gen X, you might know.
So he went to Congress, and he, like, just by being calm and nice and friendly and relating to the senator on that kind of level, got like $2 million released for his show. So a lot of people, they say that like arguments are about logic and reason and who makes the most sense, but I've tried that. And a lot of times, like, a person just has to say, like, I like this guy or this girl, and I really don't want to disagree with them because they're so friendly and they're so cool. So like, that's something that can be used, you know.
You have to work both angles.
You got to come in from both sides, for sure.
I think it's important to also hit everybody's learning styles. I mean, I've been doing a lot of research on learning styles, and there's about 11. I mean, there's more than that, but like 11 ones that I found. And, if you teach people in a specific order and make sure you hit every learning style, you will have reached the most amount of people. So you just optimize those techniques, lecture method or brainstorming method, or, so essentially even just this little think tank that we have on this podcast, like this is a thing that, helps people learn, right? Because you're expanding your knowledge base. So I think if more people had access to the tools on how to learn, how to even progress, I mean, it almost aligns with mastery of any subject. And I've been practicing rewiring my brain a lot. And I think it's very successful for me, and I think we could help other people rewire their brain. But I think it would be, the baseline is getting money to them so they can spend the time to work on themselves, right? So like, if people have money, they can have more mental bandwidth because they're not worrying about, paying this means I can't pay this, which means I can pay maybe a little bit of this, we're not spending as much mental bandwidth on that, and I think if we can make sure to present things that are, also power things encoded in our brain, some people need facts, but some people need an emotional story. It's stuff like this that I think if we can combine it all together, I think we could have something really powerful and very moving. And in my research, I don't know if you guys have heard of the hero's journey, but essentially, like any series that exists, Harry Potter, Star Wars, they all kind of follow the hero's journey.
The Campbellian journey, I think it's also called.
Yeah. So the movements of UBI are very much on track with the hero's journey, like, but on a bigger scale. Okay. And I think honestly, we're at the tail end. I think we're at the very end where it's like, because of this pandemic, we have created this, like, death of ego, a defining moment in a lot of people's lives. People aren't staying in their unhealthy relationships anymore. They're finding different housing if they need to. Their ego's taking a blow. But what happens after that is rebirth, right? So that's where we are in this particular hero's journey. And I think, we have some more challenges, but I don't think we're far off from getting it passed, simply by plugging in, the events that have been happening worldwide. So just saying, we're close, guys. If we have something people can step into, though, then they won't be lost, little puppies. They'll have, open arms and like, let's work on this together. Let's revamp our country and or world, especially if we combine with other movements like the UK movement, we're a powerful force. We exist everywhere, and we just need to keep finding where we exist so we can grow.
We had someone in Canada too. I mean, this is going to be worldwide eventually. Like they even had a UBI test in Iran of all places. But that's a whole nother thing. I was interested to know, like, what is the main opposition to basic income that you come across with the UK? Because over here in the US, we're a very like Calvinistic kind of Protestant work culture. So they're like, people will just instantly become lazy and not work. And then it's like, no, people have like intrinsic purposes and they want to do things for their own reasons. And we got that $1,200 stimulus check, and no, everybody just didn't say like, oh, I don't want to do anything anymore. That didn't happen. So is that the same you're getting over there, or it's too expensive, or
both those? Yeah, both.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, why do the rich get it?
Okay, yeah, same.
Those are probably the three main ones. I think one of the biggest troubles in the UK, obviously, our systems of government have been in place for so very, very long that it is entrenched. The kind of our forelock tugging ways to what's perceived to be our betters, which are just people who've been lucky enough to be born into money forever.
Same here.
It's going to be really hard to overturn.
Same thing.
And on top of that, have you been seeing like the cynical mindset that goes a little bit deeper than that, where the belief that when everyone gets money, there's going to be massive scarcity and riots will start because people have money but can't buy goods? Like, we can't produce everything in the world.
I mean, I don't know if you guys in the UK know, but here in America, we have 3 empty, livable homes for every homeless person. So I'm not too scared about scarcity. It's a distribution problem.
Yeah.
So I have I'd like to come in for a minute because just yesterday morning, I did a live stream with a man who is part of UBI Kenya. And I'm wondering if any of the people on our show have had a chance to contact people in Africa or in Kenya. My friends are having a fight about the hiking. So anyway, what's happening in Kenya right now is they have a devastating locusts that just wiped out a lot of things. And then they had a flood. And so some people's homes and their farms and all of their livelihood has been wiped away by that. And I think if you want to find them, they're on Facebook at UBI Movement. So, or I don't know if that's right. I think it is. So I'm just interested in, what contacts we've had with other countries besides the United States and UK.
Canada. Them on here.
Yeah, it is interesting.
What about you guys?
There is some African countries that have done it. Yeah, there's Kenya, and I think is it Uganda or Namibia? I think Namibia possibly. Various other countries around the world.
There was Finland that did that one trial.
Spain
did the trial, yeah. There's loads of places around are doing it. It's that's the sort of when the Basic Income Earth Network was sort of set up in the years ago, and then they've really pushed it. And India as well, I think. They had the Basic Income Earth Network Congress there a few years ago. So there is a lot of work going on around the world, and I think probably it seems to be that they've split it off almost into sort of developing countries and then ones that are more economically developed, and they've looked at them in completely different ways. And I think that has some merits because if you've got a lot of sort of people living on subsistence and a lot of general sort of absolute poverty, that is in a different state to an economy which is fully developed. And I think that has to be a sort of a consideration. So I think probably Canada, the European countries, America, UK, Japan, them sort of countries are probably ones that are going to have more in line with sort of in terms of us. But yes, there's lots to be learned probably from looking around all of the world. So,
and actually, the one done in Iran, they found out that people actually wanted to like study more and work more. So complete opposite of like what they think would happen. I mean, like, I don't understand. Here's the thing, like the skeptics and the ones who are against it, it's like, okay, let's do a trial run and let's see what you say about like people like would all of a sudden like not want to work or not do that. Let's see if it's actually true, because I've seen that it's not. And we really have to get towards the people who hold their hands on the levers of power. And unfortunately, like a lot of them are kind of like corporations tell them what to do, multinational companies tell them what to do. So if we tell these corporations and multinational companies that, hey, this idea is good for you too, because people will have more money to spend at your stores and at your places, it's like, why be against it? So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, we have to definitely. You know, you're starting to see some corporations actually start to back some more progressive, generally speaking, candidates in America, just because they are starting to actually win. But hopefully they're UBI progressives. You know, there are a few ways to go with progressivism. So,
well, the reason I brought up, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Faye. Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh.
No, I would be interested from Jeremy. I mean, it's one of the things is we're trying to put together a kind of a cross-party coalition about basic income. It's interesting because basic income used to be more supported by like the Tories and the Liberals, and now it's more sort of Labour Green or progressive. But we're also very interested in you know, what Conservatives are thinking about basic income in the US and how you're finding that.
All right. So yeah, our activism is still in its early stages, but what our goal is to shift the Overton window of the issue from a left issue to just a center issue. So our goal is to find these Republicans and conservatives that will adopt this platform, because it would encourage their Democratic challengers to also adopt the same policy, right? So I mean, like if the Republican or Libertarian or conservative, whatever have you, is further to the left than you on this issue, then it kind of puts them in a position to also adopt it as well. So we're trying to shift it from just to the center. It's not a left or right issue, and we're trying to break that narrative. So.
Yeah.
So it's you know, like conservatives, the one thing they don't like are big bureaucracies and giant paternalistic welfare. And we're saying like a basic income like cuts through a lot of bureaucracies and then just goes directly to the people who need it. Like, why would you pay a bureaucrat half of your tax dollars when you can maybe spend less of your tax dollars and it just goes straight to the person who needs it without all these strings attached? And conservative and like libertarians want that kind of, you know, freedom. So that's it. Like no means testing, because that all costs money too, you know?
Yeah, and one thing that we're doing with messaging here is we're also pointing out that this is good for the economy. It's good for business. It's good for individuals. It actually helps in so many ways. In the case of the states, it helps them not have to be as reliant on the federal government. So it has multiple layers. It's just tailoring the message to the audience.
Yeah, totally.
Getting conservatives on board is integral, in my opinion. And how do you do that is a big question. But yeah, I think a battle currently that we're having is that, you know, the political compass of different scales of left and right authoritarian. I think it seems to be that it's sort of shifting on the conservative side, slightly more towards the authoritarian right rather than the libertarian right. And I think it might be something that the candidates are people who maybe are more sort of libertarian might be more willing to back a basic income rather than a sort of more authoritarian big, not a big state, but a more powerful state in certain areas might be a sort of way forward. I don't really know how to target them people, but that's sort of something that I would maybe advise. But getting that on board, is, lots of governments around the world, it seems to be over the last several years that it has sort of shifted slightly more right. Certainly in Europe, we've got some very right-wing governments in Czech Republic and Poland. Probably the most right-wing government we've had in the UK for 30 years, and it's sort of similar in America. So that seems to be shifting that way. So how can we encourage them who are shifting that narrative to encourage them to adopt basic income?
Well, exactly. I have a confession, like going on what you said, Martin. I have a confession. I was a former Trump supporter, and the reason was because he was talking about the jobs, coming back. And I had like a very terrible time in the job market. And I thought like, oh, he was a businessman and we'd get more money and stuff like that. Just totally. And then when he got elected, I'm like, okay, this guy sucks. But the thing is that then when Andrew Yang came in and he said, Trump got the problems right, but his solutions were all nonsense and thing, because the jobs are being automated. They're not coming back. As kind of like coming from that conservative side, it made that spark go off for me. So if we can just do more of that for other conservatives or people like who are conservative leaning, it's like it's like the jobs, it's automation and it's not immigrants and stuff like that. That what Andrew did, we had so many people who came from the Trump side supporting Andrew and his universal basic income idea.
Something I find quite interesting is which is a fear, I think, with a lot of right-wing politicians, is this sort of, if you give people the money, we haven't got the money to give people the money and the economy will collapse. I mean, what do they imagine that people are going to do? They're not going to hide the money under the bed. They're going to go out and spend it into the economy. So this is
our
a lopsided argument that the economy will collapse. All you're doing is rejigging it slightly.
Yeah,
and they have all the money in the world for corporations. They give it to corporations who just reinvest in themselves and don't spend it. Then the economy does collapse, and they go, "Well, we are the world's reserve currency. We can print money, but if we print too much, we might not be the world's reserve currency anymore. We better only print lots and lots for corporations who already have lots of money." And they just can't stop this cycle, because both parties really they're going to serve their primary donors, the corporations, over their nominal donors. This is completely true for both Democrats and the Republicans. They're both completely owned corporate parties, and that's kind of the problem. And getting back to what you said, Martin, the shift towards a more authoritarian right, away from more libertarian right, tracks with that, because the right, the Republicans in America or anywhere, whatever the conservative party is, this is generally the true. They're going to serve, just like the left, their primary donors over their nominal donors. Their primary donors are corporations, and corporations are more of an authoritarian type of right, where it's, do what you're told, do this job, make money for me, stay in line, be a conformist, do just like everybody else, and we'll get along. Whereas individuals who are involved on the right in politics tend to have more of a libertarian individualist ideology, So as corporations have become richer, more ascendant, and as donation laws have been laxed, and how much a person can donate to a political campaign in this country, versus how much an organization can donate, there are just no limits with the backdoors we have today. So it tracks that, as companies became more powerful, individuals became less powerful, the politics of the right became authoritarian, and the politics of the left here became neoliberal.
Yes.
Anyway, go on.
And to add on to that, it's like corporations have become like the modern kings and queens of medieval Europe.
I'd like to.
It's like.
Faye, are you?
I'd like to I'd like to go back to the reason why I asked about the African situation or UBI in places where, cost of living and income and all that is much lower than ours. Because I used to think, it absolutely has to start here in the United States, because after all, this is where all the money is. So if some country's going to print all the money, it better be us, right? I mean, we're the de facto world currency. We're already supplying the world. But I think that the nations in Africa and other places are better at being cohesive and being, trying to gain a power as a group. For example, they're much more, they're using the United Nations right now, and they're using it very well. And if I've been doing this for advocacy for like a year about, and during this year, I had not gone to the UN Convention on the Universal Convention, the Universal Human Rights that every country is signed on to, including ours. And I have not gone into that document and said, hey, let me pull out this article that says people have a right to certain things. You know what I mean? And so I think one of the problems that we're having is we don't trust other nations because they're poor. We don't trust people within our country because they're poor for the same reason. We have the same racial and, same sort of, prejudices against people who are poor in our country as we would against somebody who's far away from us. We definitely have a hard time building trust with someone we don't see. So I'm wondering if that, what do you think? Is it like sufficient to just sort of stay in our country? Because if we bring it to an international perspective, in my country, in East Texas, definitely, people would be like, we don't care about those people over there,
Well, you have to make both arguments, really. I've been privileged to be able to participate in Basic Income Earth Network Congresses. And there I've met people from Kenya and from India, from Indonesia, from Sierra Leone, from Malawi. There are sort of like pockets of people. And if you go onto the Basic Income Earth Network site, you'll find the different affiliated groups around the world. So if you want to, connect with specific countries, I mean, there's not a group in every country, obviously, but it's getting up towards like 70. So that'll be about half the countries in the world, I think.
Could you put that link in the chat if you didn't already?
I did. It's up there. Okay. Yeah. So Basic Income Earth Network. Unfortunately, because of COVID, they were supposed to have a Congress in fact, in September this year, but that's been canceled in Australia. But the last Congress was in Hyderabad in India. And so that was really interesting. They really focused the organizers of that Congress really focused on people who had participated in pilots. So they had some women, particularly women from the pilots in India. I don't know if you guys have heard of those, which were very interesting. And Kenya, they had some people from the Give Directly pilot in Kenya. One of the women who's sort of helping run that, and then one of the participants. There are videos online. I'll kind of, after I stop speaking, I'll look around for those. But there was some really interesting interventions there.
Well, that's nice of you to introduce them to us. But I think my question is really like, do you think it's of benefit in the UK to talk about other places, or if it's just something that turns people off?
I wouldn't say that it turns people off. I think they're actually interested to know that this is an international movement. And actually, like when you get people saying, oh, well, if we get basic income, then the whole world is going to kind of park on our doorstep to get it, I find it really useful to talk about the fact that there is an international movement, that there are people demanding basic income all over the world. And while we may not all get it at the same time, there are people demanding it, and we hope that eventually we'll all be successful. I mean, the thing is, what we get really is the whole kind of immigration thing on both sides, all right? So there are people who are worried that migrants wouldn't get a basic income, and then there are people who are worried that migrants would get a basic income. All right, so I mean, I always use the example of the Alaska dividends, you know, that anybody in the US can go up and live in Alaska for a year and then they can get the dividends. But you don't see sort of hundreds of thousands of people rushing up there to get it, you know?
Somehow we don't do that.
Yeah. Who knew? All right.
I could do it. I could do it anytime. And yet I never do. I don't know.
Hey, you know, so, you know, so there's that side of, there's the, you know, pro and anti-migration side of things. But also it's, I mean, for me, I think it's just very enriching to meet people from all over the world, you know, who are fighting on this subject. I think there's a way that, I mean, I'm from the left kind of by tribe, you know, from my background and stuff, but I've just found being in this movement for the last sort of, what is it now, 7 years, has been such an enriching personal experience, you know, because just, I don't know, there's something about like once you accept that people have a right to unconditional money and that it's our share of the economy, and it, you know, that the cost of poverty, you know, this is actually one kind of right-wing argument for it, which is that the cost of poverty and the cost of insecurity are so huge, all right, that they kind of dwarf the cost of basic income altogether. Yeah, so you know, I've found that, you know, having that kind of perspective that, you know, giving people money would be a good thing and not controlling them would also be a good thing. You know, I'm just meeting such amazing people and with such a great perspective on things. So you know, for me, it's been kind of a blast actually. Not to sound like too hedonistic.
Like the ultimate,
amazing.
I think that the thing that binds the United States and the United Kingdom together is not only English, but the financial system that we share and our system of bureaucratic governance. And, you know, a lot of what we do, we may say we're democratic and then we broke away from Mother England and all this, but actually we continued our colonialism. We continued we sort of continued the bureaucratic systems that, you know, this is how we believe good people run the world. You know, we administrate.
And so we just replaced kings and queens with like people with like high prestige and like celebrities and
with presidents
people
and
in corporations. Sorry, go ahead, Faye. I just had to say that.
It's fine. And also, of course, we still have a common religion in that we both kind of share Christianity. And I noticed that the African, you know, the Kenyans that I was speaking with, he was also very, you know, he clings to God and he uses his religion every day, you know, to give him strength during this time. So I find that, but the way that he practices is very different than how we practice it in the United States, or at least for many people here. I see a lot of different types of practice. Is religion and, you know, still an important source of, you know, personal decision-making and things like that? And how do they speak about UBI in the UK?
I don't know, but didn't the Pope come out in support of UBI? But
yes, he did, yeah.
British.
Yes.
I don't know religion in this country. Martin?
Well, religious conservatives who are sort of, you know, very sort of want everything to be traditional and the way that it's always been, they are very, very difficult to, I think, trying to persuade them that a basic income is the right thing to do. But I think a lot of people who are religious will also see the values and that we will be led by the sort of rights that everyone should have, and they will see that as a sort of as a fairness in a way. And I mean, you kind of go back to the, you know, Jesus and all about looking after the neighbor, and a lot of the things that he said, you know, he would you could use in the terms of a basic income, but you can twist his words, and Donald Trump could use them and use them to manufacture a particular style of politics. So religion's a very, very difficult area, and I always say that we should leave politics and religion separately, and I think that's the best way to leave them. But
yeah, I agree with you, Martin, because religion is, by and large, I see my mother is a priest actually, so I've been dragged into more churches than I would wish to be. And there's a lot of narrow-minded, mean-spirited, jealous people in religion. It attracts them. So, you know, I think a lot of Christians are not Christian.
Sorry, yeah, I beg to differ, actually.
Okay.
There were some, there was recently a conversation that the basic income conversation brought together. I'm just trying to find it actually, but which was actually a bunch of different Christians from around the UK talking about basic income and its kind of relationship to the Bible and how Christ would have supported a basic income and and how it's part of sharing the wealth basically, which is and making sure that everybody if you kind of try to emphasize the best in Christianity, then it really is not a bad basic income is quite an interesting policy. I've just put in the chat box a book that was written here by a vicar named Malcolm Torrey, who also for a long time was involved with the Citizens Basic Income Trust, called Citizens Basic Income, a Christian Social Policy. Yeah, so if somebody else can talk, I'm going to look for that video and I'll put it up on the.
Also, I just want to say that Trump put his name on the checks that went out to everybody. So
yeah, so
conservatives can get behind too. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask, since we're on the subject of Christianity and UBI, what are your guys' thoughts on the Pope actually endorsing UBI, especially on Easter Sunday?
Yeah, it was really interesting. He's been kind of creeping towards it for a while. There was some discussion within the Basic Income Earth Network whether he really meant basic income or whether he kind of meant something else. All right. So I think people, again, I think in a way it's like, I mean, inequality is not really the, although a lot has been made of inequality and how bad it is on the left. It's actually insecurity. Which is really affecting people. I mean, I don't really care if somebody has 2 or 3 cars or 5 houses or whatever, but I do care whether I can pay my rent and next month.
Amen.
That is better rhetoric. That is much better rhetoric.
That is much, yeah.
No, I'm not sure why I've never seen it presented that way, but I think that is just a better argument for a lot of audiences.
Because do you guys know in the UK know Bernie Sanders? Maybe not.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So remember that verbiage. Let's not say inequality. Let's say the issue is
insecurity. Right.
That is something that I think really like staunch, stiff, sober minds will respond to.
Yes, because the problem is like we're always framing everything so divisively. Yeah. And I think part of the even a lot of people in the Bernie camp, not all, but a lot, when they saw Yang, like this newcomer, they were like, no, Bernie almost won last time. We can't have this. And then we're like, chill. Like, my God, it was crazy because they say like they're the ones who have taken our stuff and our money and they're not paying their fair share, and then that closed off a lot of conservatives and a lot of people. But then when Yang came in and Yang said, hey, it belongs to all of us, it's all of ours, and everybody deserves like a decent level of floor, that got a lot more people to come in the fold because they didn't feel like they were being attacked as the bad people, Yeah.
No, I really think the issue of insecurity is massive, and I think if we're talking about authoritarianism, and I think there's authoritarianism on the left as well, okay? I mean, it's not just an issue.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
It's really people kind of trying to grasp at some kind of certainty, all right? Somebody's going to solve their problems, and whether, it involves, sending in more police or whether it involves, the government kind of stepping in all different places, people are kind of drifting towards authoritarianism and on both sides, and I think, so like this whole kind of progressive narrative of, the 99 versus the 1%, again, it's like, I don't know, what people's backgrounds are, but, there's certainly in this country, the insecurity is actually affecting people at higher and higher levels. All right. So like people who used to have like really good, secure jobs and very well paid jobs in the civil service, are being asked to reapply for their jobs, are being told that they, have to be, so-called self-employed, where the security just kind of goes up in a poof, or even, like a friend who's involved with basic income, he trained as a lawyer, all right? And, even though he trained as a lawyer and he's got a very good, accent, okay, very posh accent, it's really difficult for him to find a secure job these days, and so I really think we need to be emphasizing the insecurity of people's lives and trying to solve that, in some, in some tangible way, rather than, again, the inequality. I get the arguments about it. I get the arguments against inequality, and there was a very good book here called The Spirit Level, which has been taken up by a lot of progressives here. But really, again, when it comes down to it, most people, it's not about caring about what other people have. It's about the fact, that you don't know from one month or 1 week to the next, whether you can put food on the table, whether you can pay your rent, whether you can put, gas in your car in the States, or whether you can pay for your transport to get to work, or that sort of thing, and that's, I mean, like, our problem with the Tories in this country, or with the Conservatives in this country, is that they very much invested in a welfare scheme called universal credit. All right, and that's kind of acts. It's supposed to, like, without all the other stuff, it would kind of be acting like a negative income tax. All right, but the way it actually operates, where people are asked, to spend horrendous amounts of time looking for work, pretends that nobody has anything else to do. Even if you have a job that is regular, the income fluctuates from month to month depending on your payday. So it's actually, and unfortunately it's called universal credit. So then some people mix it up with universal basic income, which is very
insidious,
basically.
Right.
So they've, and this system isn't even all the way put in. Okay, they instituted it they started it in 2013, but it's still kind of, it's still being implemented. Okay, it's taken them forever, partly because of all the problems with it. And it's supposed to make work pay, but actually it doesn't. And I think that's another issue. Just one more issue that I want to talk about, and then I'm probably gonna have to leave pretty soon. I'm sorry.
Okay, you've given us a good hour. It's been a fascinating talk. Thank you.
Is that people, and I think Andrew Yang got this really, really right, okay, in his campaign, is that people don't want to feel that they're on welfare. All right, and that's just a fact. And so I'm always talking about this as like our fair share of the economy. This is our social inheritance. This is, the thing we need to be able to rely on each month, or things like that. Because although I've been on welfare, I've been a welfare rights advisor in the past, I'm totally in people having what they need. Often, like when I'm out on the street, I don't know what your take is on this, Faye, but when I'm out on the street, I almost never talk about this as welfare. All right, because good or bad, all right, and it really turns people off. All right, they don't want to think of themselves as being on welfare. However, if like talking about, well, this is our security, this is our, like what somebody was calling basic income, everybody's social security, I guess that's welfare in the States, so maybe that's not a good thing. But in this country, like talking about our fair share, and this is our share of the economy that we all participate in, or how are you contributing? And often it's not, again, it's like, it's often people are contributing to the economy, whether they get paid to do a job or not, right? So, so then people, so people can talk about that. And we've also collected stories, and I really recommend the map that I put up earlier just some amazing stories from people about how basic income would improve their lives. And and I do try to, just personally, I try to avoid the welfare conversation. I think it's more about justice and solving the insecurity problem.
Yeah,
you hit the nail on the head. Thomas Paine just said, it's like, for when you're born into the world, like nobody says like this land is yours or this land isn't yours. The world is already carved up into pieces of land like before you were born, and people had that land before you were born. So it's like, who's to say what was what when you never had a say in this? So this is just your compensation for all that land that was carved up that you never had a say in. Go ahead, Shale.
Absolutely. But we also see this now, in in invention, in the tech world. Okay. I mean, most of the tech world is driven by things that were, things that were discovered and paid for by the US taxpayer. All right. And that's just a fact. All right. I mean, again, I know that personally because my dad was a military scientist. All right. But, and I saw that, I saw the work that he did and he and his colleagues were paid $250 per patent. And that included, all right, Polaroid lenses. All right, just think about that. All right. That included, breathable casts, like when you break your leg or something. All right. That included memory foam. All right. So you just think, I mean, all of those things were invented for the US military, and they've turned into extremely profitable, commercial products, and they were basically just given away. All right. This is something that's really owed to people. I quite like, James Felton Keith, who was running for,
yeah, I like him.
I don't think he got the primary, but he was running in New York. I mean, he has I think, his strapline, "We Owe Us," I mean, I think is fantastic.
I love it. He was running right near me. Yeah.
Oh, right. Great. Yeah. I mean, it's really unfortunate he didn't get any farther.
No,
but
I really hope he runs again. But I also responded to that. I told him when I sent him a message as soon as I read it, I was like, this is a really good tagline. This is traction. We have to remember this one. So yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think all of that, I mean, you've got the inheritance issue, you've got the land issue, there are a lot of people who want to pay for basic income using land value tax. But, you've got the fact, and Guy Standing talks about this, all right, at least in the UK, something like 60 to 70% of the wealth in the UK is actually transferred through inheritance. All right, that's not somebody earning it, and it's not to say that people can't earn anything. But we need to be supporting, and especially coming out from COVID, we need to be supporting people to, make a better good living at what they really love and want to do. And that's going to be the most productive thing that we could do.
I think we also forget how much power we could have if like everyone in just this phone call took their UBI and maybe just $50 of it, right? $50, and maybe like that combines into something that we could build a giant thing for, right? We could finally finance anything because we collected all our money together, right? For a big goal and maybe a big purchase, right? But imagine that on an organizational scale. Like if it was a bigger scale and everyone in an organization just chipped in a little bit of their UBI money, or in every community, we could finally buy those big ticket items that we haven't been able to afford because of big business, right? We could finally be like, oh, you know what? Our town could really use some new infrastructure, and we could do it ourselves if we had the machine, right? We have the skills. We just the big business took it when they left, right? And so we would be able to pull back resources collectively as community and or as organizations to actually make a bigger impact in the world, and we would have more say in how it's spent, whether other than big business taking all the money and all of the okays and polluting our areas, when really we just need to hire a team of people to pick up the pollution, right? Or clean up the pollution, or build a filter that makes it better, and it would give more power to the people because they're like, I helped with this. I was part of the planning. I did the proposal with these people, and they're all like emotionally tied into it too, right? Because right now we don't even have power to fix any of the problems that big businesses have caused because we're barely surviving. So I think we need to work together.
Yeah, also Faye, you talk about power of the people, because I think people say, oh, well, this is never going to work because our governments won't allow it, and they won't allow us to have this. The people in power are a tiny, tiny amount of the total people in the world. If you can get everyone on board, they wouldn't be, and I'm not talking about violent action, but sort of non-violent action. They can't resist 98% of the world going, hey, hello, we're not happy with this. They wouldn't be able to. So we have to sort of join together. Revolution.
Even like 30% of the
funny-
world,
Yeah.
people really would have to listen to,
Guys,
realistically.
It's not
Well, the
even
funny thing
really
is
all
that-
that. It's 3.5% of our population doing something noticeable. That's the major push, since we are in population so large now.
But the interesting thing is, when we talk about power, we talk about it as if it's some intrinsic thing. The real definition of power is people being able to get things done through other people. As soon as people stop listening, that power goes away. And it's simply a matter of choice. And if enough people choose to stop listening, that power automatically dissipates. So realistically, power is something that ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's obviously when you give people, their financial security, that could be deemed as a massive threat to the establishment in terms of every individual can do what they want. And I just personally think that the neoliberal idea of individualism, you may as well take it to its full extent. So you break down a lot of the general sort of arguments that they've been making about individuals should do work and contribute to the economy, but they're not willing to give the individuals a sort of a fair share and a floor. So I think that's a bit of a big flaw in their sort of ideology and thinking.
Hypocrisy.
But yes, it is, and they are happy to do that, but then they're also happy to increase their growth and inequality, and then allow people to sort of fall through the gaps, and that's why it's a flaw, and it's a flaw that doesn't have holes in it, so it's not like a very sponge or like a colander where you just sort of end up leaking through, and so we don't want that. We want a very solid floor that everyone can be supported on.
I always said, get those people with the same philosophy, put them in the middle of nowhere with no money, with no contacts on their phone, with no nothing, and just tell them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. How many of them would take that on? Go ahead, Martin.
That's what we have to put on Netflix right there.
There was a liberal thinker, I've forgotten what he was called, back in the sort of, I think, 50s, 60s. He was sort of saying as a thought experiment is, okay, you didn't have any sort of inheritance from anyone, and you were just sort of in your womb and in your mom's womb, and you're thinking, okay, what world do you want to be born into? But what would you want? What would your key things that you want? And you'd ask for, well, you'd ask for some security, wouldn't you? You'd ask for financial security, you'd ask for healthcare security, you'd ask for an opportunity in life just to have the education and to fulfill your goals. That's all the things that you would want. So if you take away everyone's sort of biases and perceptions that they've grown up with, and then when they're 25, they're now voting and they're now ultra conservative because they possibly have had privilege or had a particular life and had certain life experiences. If you go back to that first stage, everyone will want the same thing, which is that security. So I think using that thought experiment is quite a powerful thing, just to sort of say, what would you want if you were just coming into the world fresh and new? You'd want that security. And guys,
security in the inevitables, right?
Sorry, say that again.
Security in the inevitability. Security is in the inevitability of being a human, right? There's certain things that are inevitable that we need, like a bathroom, somewhere to sleep, something to eat, right? Like we just want those needs met. Wouldn't that be great? The proper care and feeding of humans.
Yeah.
It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's a really powerful thing. That pyramid that is a really, really powerful thing that everyone should be sort of told at school, in my opinion. And how do we get that into the curriculum? That's another thing about education, about saying people that, it's people might think it's common sense that you target your resources into the people who need it the most. But I would argue that universalism is a much better concept, and getting that into, again, the mainstream thought about universalism is really, really another key concept. But yeah, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, address everyone's physiological needs, and then it just cascades up to the top. And someone who's interested in the environment, the top need is the environment. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get people to respect the environment as much as it needs if you're not addressing all of their social connections, their social networks, the community around them, and their physiological needs. So getting them it is a human right. It should be a universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's not been implemented, and that should be obviously something that we should be pushing for, but it is a human right. But then looking at that pyramid and spreading that is something that could be really important.
Great stuff, Martin. Guys, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to chip off.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to have you, Barb. We'd love to have you again sometime. We learned a lot.
Anytime. Just give me a shout. And really great to meet you all, and good luck with everything, and good luck with kind of spreading the news around. I put loads of links in the chat box, so maybe save that and explore those for later. And yeah, please keep in touch. I mean, I think, you know, what's happened in the last couple years around basic income, particularly with Andrew Yang's movement, has been fantastic. I personally had a few niggles with his particular plan, but hey ho, you know, I mean, I think at the moment, the way we are, I think we need to make that case for universalism, that it's actually the best way to reach people who need it most. All right. That's the other thing that people don't talk about, is how basic income, you know, okay, it reduces bureaucracy for the government, but actually it reduces bureaucracy for poor people. All right. I mean, if you've ever had to deal with a welfare system of any kind, the amount of
there's
bureaucracy that you have to
discrimination
deal with just makes you just lose the will to live, practically, right?
You've been there.
So
I have.
Yeah, you know, so I mean, it really, I think this is a really important thing, and you know, I think it's a really important movement. It's really fantastic. You know, if you kind of explore more, in fact, there's a Latin American group that's just been set up recently. I'm sorry, I don't have the details to hand, but you know, if you keep an eye on the Basic Income Earth Network website, they usually have the latest news about what's happening globally. And I think, you know, I think this is like the one thing, I mean, besides anti-war, okay, and also for the environment, you know, basic income is the other thing, okay? It's the other thing that's really a global, you know, a global concern, and has the potential to be a really truly global movement. So again, thank you all, and huge amounts of luck, and thank you, Maggie and Martin. Hopefully see you soon. Yeah, so I'll let you get on with it. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you again, Barb.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Fantastic.
Have a great day, Barb.
You too. Thanks.
All right. So you guys, I can stick around for a while. Do you guys have any more time? Do you have to go to? I don't want to press anyone.
Not immediately. I've got my son trying to do food, but it's
All right.
okay. He's been given a
Whenever you need to leave, just listen. So please.
So
where were we?
Richard said some sort of that you two had some kinds of like backstories, and let's see, like can we relate it to basic income, or like where you've been, because it's like some people say like I don't know, he gave me some kind of like a credential or something.
Maggie's probably got more.
Backstory sounds sinister.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean,
Well, I'm a former actor. I've got tons of backstories, but you know, which particular one do you want? Well, it's just something. I think it was.
Like,
it might even been you, Ariel, saying ages ago about you know, the way people are valued. I think is interesting. So yeah, the groups that I run in Brighton for mums. We're a charity, so we have quite a lot of free place.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Don't have a lot of money, and you know, for mothers, the work that they do as mothers is not valued. You're just told, oh, you signed up for that. You wanted to have a child, kind of negating the point that society, we were all children once. Society is people's children grown up. So that because their work is not valued, that has a very negative impact on their mental health. I see it in the group. So we never say, oh, when are you going back to work? Because women are always asked when you're going back to work. What the hell do you think we're doing? Yeah. You know, you're up all night, changing nappies, feeding your baby. Well, is that not work? And yet somehow sitting in an office, tapping on a screen, that's work, is it? Phoning up someone to say, oh, you've been in a car accident and you need compensation. Is that work? Of course it isn't. So I get very,
we've universally benefited from this type of labor. We're intimately we're all intimately familiar with this type of labor.
Here's what
it's fundamentally inhuman to not recognize.
Oh yeah, here's what boggles.
Care for someone at some point in their life. It might be a child, it might be an elderly person, it might be to say, you know, we all care for someone at some point, and that is not valued. That's somehow seen to demean it by calling it work.
But yet when you go to other people's homes, the ironic thing is, but when you go to other people's homes with other people's families and other people's children, then it's work.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Ridiculous. And it's the amazing. Okay, so think about this. In 2008, we had the financial crash. Who crashed our finances? All the people who have been like financializing our economy for the past 12 years, instead of getting punished, they got rewarded for failing. How do you explain that? How in God's green earth do you explain that? And they don't want to call what you're doing work, when what they were working on was crashing our economy and they got compensated for it. It boggles the mind.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, there's different calculations that you can do, and there's a good one released by the UK government. It was a few years ago. It's a few years old now, from the Office of National Statistics, and it was just a very, very simple thing that possibly a tool that could be used in America if you could create one. But basically, you had like a sort of a timeline or like a scale, and you put your scale about how many hours per week that you did of like childcare, of cooking, of cleaning, all these different things, and you had a list of them, and you added up how many unpaid hours you did, and each like per hour. So like childcare might be £12 per hour, or cooking might be £8.50 an hour, or whatever. And then you add them all up, and you can find out how much unpaid work you're doing per day, per week, per month, per year. And most people are doing, tens of thousands of pounds of unpaid work during the year. So almost, again, that's just going back to the idea about it being a right and being fair. Then that's just a sort of calculation that can be shared around and say, look, you are doing the work. It's just that you're contributing to society in a different way, but you don't have to be technically in a job to be contributing. So that tool can be quite powerful to get out to people. If it could be made in the America, that would be great.
Why, yes, Martin, I'm going to build on Martin's thing, because I actually happen to have right here a statistic. This is actually from a book that came out about 3-4 years ago, so it's probably slightly out of date. Again, it was to do with mothers, which said there was around 2 million mothers at home in the UK. These women are branded as economically inactive by the Office for National Statistics. The value of informal childcare is calculated by them as £343 billion per year, which is 23% of GDP. So
yeah, massive, huge, yeah, and also
I'm glad you're doing that work.
Yeah, it's just really, because all the stuff about mothers probably, and fathers as well, which is they're all left out. They just have 2 or 3 weeks and they go back to work. They want to stay with their kid. They want to look after them, especially during the first few months. So you're having a system where you're funneling as often the fathers back into work, and that's leaving the mothers by themselves, looking after the kid, and then possibly having a lot of the implications that causes. Then they, after about a year, they are losing their maternity pay that they get. So then they are forced back to go to work, and then the child gets passed around to other relatives, friends, possible childcare. The disruption there, the development there in terms of the children's brains, which we all know in the 2 or 3 years is really important for them to be with their parents. So all that developmental side of it is just completely or backward, really. And on a conservative point of view as well, there's the traditional idea about a conservative family and looking after the children. Well, UBI allows you to do that, allows the parents to be with their child and look after their child. So that's another possible hook into appealing to more conservative-minded people who want to look after their families and be traditional. So.
And the funny thing is like, okay, like conservatives talk about like no abortions and stuff, but what about after when the person is born? Then it's like, oh, okay, nobody cares. I mean, it's pretty crazy, you know. It's
I mean,
like,
it's like, Ariel, if you
life.
zoom out, it wasn't always that way. We're living in the aftermath of many campaigns that perverted and politicized American religion and especially American Christianity. So it's like the vestiges of Christian morality are what we're seeing. It's nothing to do with what the religion was 100 years ago in America. It's become this completely politicized thing, you know? So that's why it's so hypocritical.
But now we have the internet and we can self-teach and practice critical thinking. Not everyone's doing it, obviously, but like we have that ability now. But people without technology, like good Wi-Fi or phones, can't actually access this like knowledge machine at their fingertips. Right?
Yep.
We lose Faye Doney.
Right.
Okay, she's back.
Okay.
And like it almost keeps people in the dark. Where did I disappear? Am I still here?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay. What did you hear?
But now people have the internet, and then we heard you go slow motion.
Okay. We have the internet now, so we can actually practice critical thinking. We can have it at our fingertips if we are where there's Wi-Fi and internet, right? But if you don't have those things, then you've essentially cut people off and put them in the dark ages because they can't even do the research themselves.
Right. And not to mention, just to hook on to that, like getting work that now requires you to have these things which cost money. You see, like to get to work, like people need you to have an address, to maybe have a suit and tie, to buy the equipment that some of the work needs. And if you don't have the income to buy that, then you even have trouble getting work. So it's like we put people in this chicken and egg situation, and it's completely just idiotic. And yeah.
Well, now we have the pandemic, so libraries are
Right.
closed, which is where they would go for information if they didn't have it, right? And like, I mean, bathrooms are closed, so they can't even go to the bathroom. Like, there's so much closed off that were resources for nomads. And I know this first experience because I've had some emotional days in relation to it. And if I can get riled up over just having to like get kicked out of a place because I'm not allowed to use their bathroom, because like the homeless are totally discriminated against. It's so much discrimination. It's like you have no civil rights, and yet people are one emergency away from being homeless themselves. Yet they continue this perpetuation of discrimination. It's like, guys, like we're all on the same team. We need to take care of each other. That person that you just kicked out of the room, maybe they actually have the cure to cancer. I don't know, but if they die, like,
why do we have this culture of antipathy? Why?
It's sick. I don't know. It beats me. Yeah. Really got to like question a lot of the things that we kind of just assume and take for granted for so many years, because I mean, the truth is, like, we're living in a world of like abundance. A lot of farms in this country just throw away farms are throwing away their food, and houses are just going vacant, and there are people that are hungry and people don't have any houses, and yet no, like the market, our God, will just guide us with like whatever, and it's like, put that away. Enough.
It's the false neoliberal chase to satisfy the rich aristocrats instead of increasing affordability and making capital truly efficient.
Right. And if we do a universal basic income, like then like maybe it'll help science and space travel and like all these things of the future. Wouldn't you want that as an aristocrat anyway? And it just helps people. So I don't see the downside. It's just this like philosophy of like, oh no, but they're not doing work and money
No,
is
it's not a
coming to
philosophy.
them.
It's a fallacy.
It's fallacy, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like what we said during the campaign. Which world do we want to live in, Star Trek or Mad Max?
Yes.
Well, at least, we got the masks now, so we're kind of fitting that Mad Max theme.
Yeah.
Floored humongous. That's something
Yeah.
to aspire to be.
But I think going
talking
forward,
about the internet though as well, there is a threat. We've seen with Facebook and Twitter and social media, and it being manipulated and used and abused. So it's a great tool, but somehow it needs to be, it needs to be looked after, and it needs to be made sure that it's not used as a way of almost dismantling democracy. And that's what I think is currently underway. So I always say that, like Facebook and Twitter, with the echo chambers that we're in and the bubbles, they should almost feed in you opposite views, and every fifth post or something should be something that you really just don't like at all, and that is completely against you. And they know that. They've got the data where they can say you are on this side and this is your opposite side. Just chuck in the odd post, and then you'll be, oh dear me,
That's
that's
with their minds, Martin.
Actually, in America, in America, there's someone who was inspired by Andrew Yang's data dividend. He actually made something very equivalent to Facebook, where it actually pays you for your data that it collects, right? So it would be a proof of concept for him, for anybody who joins it. It's called Fray.world, FRAY.world. And it's in its beginning stages, but guess what? He's part of the gang, and he's open for suggestions on evolving it for the people, so that people can get money for it. And we don't, it's so new, right? It's only on Android for the phone, but you can get on Apple through the website, right? But the thing is, these dreams would flourish more if they had more resources going into them.
Oh, for sure. And so, go ahead, Faith.
Oh, well, baby ideas like this, they grow so slowly because it's all grassroots, right? But with the UBI,
that's for sure. And Martin, what you were saying, this is what's so powerful about our basic income movement. And I reached out to you guys is because I think the basic income movement is we're the ones who go outside of our echo chambers. We always try to get people, whether they're conservative, for Trump, for Bernie, for Biden, or what have you. And we have collected people from all sides of the political spectrum. And while all these other movements are just in their echo chambers, we're growing and expanding. I just want to put that out there.
I think Sheridan has to sign off, so let's let him say goodbye real quick. Sheridan.
Yes, I do have to bounce out. Unfortunately, my life is banging down the door. Thank you for having me, Shale. It was wonderful to talk to all of you wonderful advocates from the UK. Be safe. You can find me on Twitter at JSaberGamer, JSABERGAMER. Have a good day, all.
Good. Take care of your life. Let's play Payday sometime.
Sheridan.
All right, see you. Please forget to play Payday with Sheridan. It's my favorite video game. There's nothing to do with this anyway.
So, okay. For the UK movement, you guys have been around a lot longer than America. I'm curious, what differences you see from our movement to your guys's? Where are the differences at?
I'll let Martin speak on this because I've actually only heard about basic income properly kind of just before Christmas, whereas he's a veteran, even though he's so very young. He's a veteran about this kind of thing. So go, Martin, go.
Well, I mean, I've only been involved for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, really. But it did sort of originate right back into the 70s, really, was when it really kicked off. And there was various different groups, and a lot of the conservatives at the time were pushing it, and there was a possibility of it being implemented. And I think it was the same in America, actually. I think it was Nixon, maybe, who was contemplating putting it in as a vote close or something like that. So, I mean, there's that big history, and the Citizens Basic Income Trust was set up, and they've done a lot of really, really good work. But it's mainly, I think, the problem is it's been a very academic sort of reserved thing that people have been looking at too. People who have been economists and policymakers who are very much one section of the economic sort of thought class. Really, most of them have been like neoliberal, or maybe looking at that side of the politics, or completely the other way, it's sort of left wing and looking at more distributive and socialist sort of ideas. But there's been a very, very few sort of small people who have been doing this academic research, but it's mainly just been confined to that little silo, and it's been on for a long, long time, and it's only really broke through in the last few years. And I think Yang, with the UBI lab network that has all been set up, for some reason, whether it's just after years of austerity that finally something's clicked, it sort of has just seemed to come together in the last few years. So I don't really know why that's come together, but that seems to be what's happened. So I think reserved, confined to an academic area, and it's only really broke out in the last few years. So I think, yes, we've had some background there, but I don't think that you're that far behind. And in fact, with the Yang sort of campaign, in fact, I think you've probably got more people spread across the whole country, and people who are really, really, really mobilized and really engaged and are committing their life to this, where us in the UK, where we're continuing very much a bit along the sort of campaigny, we will try and get MPs to sign up, and we will try and lobby Parliament to do something. I think, and we'll do academic research and policy stuff. That's sort of, we're still a bit stuck in that. And how can we break out into the community organising and getting that and talking to real people is a stage that I think you are further ahead than us on.
Well, we're real
would love
people
to help
doing
you
some
along with
talking.
that, actually. If
Go ahead,
you'd
Angelo.
like to trade notes, we would definitely love to help you. Humanity First Movement is doing the same thing, but we're still kind of figuring it all out ourselves as well. So we would love to keep in touch and make sure that we can, sort of trade tactics and ideas.
I think what we need to do is trade our skills. Okay. Like, if you guys have really great people who are, higher skilled with video making because you've been doing it for a while, we need mentors in some of this area, Skillshare, idea generation, think tanks. I think this would benefit us in a way that is probably going to perpetuate us farther, because we're working on it. And if we had to fundraise, it would be a more powerful message if we're coming from multiple countries, even, I think,
that's a difference maker.
Hey, wake up. And I think we need all of that. And I think if we combine stories from Canada, stories from UK, stories from the US and Kenya, people would be like, whoa, wait, this is much bigger than I thought. There are way more people organized that I just am behind the curve on, right? Oh, this is a thing. But there's other organizations I think we need to team up with. So any organization that's making a big impact right now is very powerful, especially the reach. If the reach is good, that means their structural tactics are very efficient, and we need to replicate that, right? Whatever we're doing, though, we need to learn from other organizations, and I think find a lot of mentorship or the right people to talk to. Because I think, as we expand, we find more teachers, but, to me, I feel like the movement here is in its baby stages, yet we're, we got momentum. We got some momentum, and the stimulus checks that we got really helped prove at least that we could divvy out the money. That was, some people are like, where's the money going to come from? Oh, we can't. No, we can. We can spread it out. We figured out where a lot of the holes are in our system and where we can improve on, right? That's going to be this movement too. And, if we have data to collect and present, maybe we just need to combine that with other forces that are magical with this kind of thing, or, stuff like that. Who's your connections? Who's outside of your echo chamber who could also help out? Do you know someone in the film industry that we could talk to? Could we find these things? Because the biggest thing is it's eyeballs. We need as many eyeballs as we can. I think that's what it boils down to. But if we have eyeballs all over the world, come on. We'll be hard to miss, right? Just saying.
Yeah. Or to sum up what she's saying, we need to build the world's largest coalition and network, because when we combine our efforts, we're unstoppable.
Yeah, and as well, it's humanity first is really is a really good message, because humanity is key to everyone, and it means that all of these sort of racial biases that people have had and cultural differences and all these traditions, at the end of the day, we're all just humans and we're all exactly the same, and breaking down them barriers between someone who lives a life as a subsistence farm in Africa and someone who is in China and lives a factory worker and someone who's in the UK or in America who's working in an office or in the financial sector. They're all humans at the end of the day. And that's, I think, a really powerful message. And that pervades everything almost in politics. And that's why I think you've been able to pull people in from all different sides, because that is a real powerful thing.
I
But also
completely
going forward,
agree. Well said. Yeah.
We're just wondering about what your next steps are, really, because the Andrew Yang campaign's great, and whatever happens in the next few months, we'll see. And good luck with whatever side you want to support in November. But what happens sort of next year and going forward? Because I think we are thinking about that as well, that we're in a situation that we had our general election last year, and there's not going to be another general election until a few years' time, who can realistically change things on a national scale. That's why lots of people are doing lots of local work in terms of local councils like myself and Maggie and Richard's petition in Brighton and Hove, and other petitions and other work in other councils across the UK. So I'm just wondering, are you going to push for more governors and more mayors? There's some great work that's being done, like Stockton.
I can.
That's a great, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can actually speak to that.
Oh, okay,
So,
Andrew, you speak to it.
Yeah, so what we are doing right now is we're actually trying to get UBI advocates elected in all branches of government. So from the Congress down to local mayors, governors, city council, basically in every level. And currently we're actually organizing in every state to try and achieve that at the local level, and also boost understanding of what UBI is, how it works, and really getting the local community activated and acting as sort of a central hub for information.
That sounds really good. I know there's fundamental flaws in the American democracy with gerrymandering.
You don't say.
But it's a bit easier in the UK. We don't have as much as that, and there's financial fair play and in terms of contributions that people can have. So I think we are in a bit of a better situation than that, than you are. But yeah, if you can build and use a lot of the sort of community organizing that Barack Obama's campaign sort of really started and build from the ground is really powerful. But I don't know whether you do lots of door knocking and whether you really, pound the streets, but that also always works in the UK when if you just
America's
talk to
not a walking culture, though, is it? It's a driving.
Yeah, that's why I don't like about
walking from one house to another.
And the gerrymandering is so extreme and strange here. It feels like a lot of the time, when you're doing the door knocking, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but it often feels like it is not impactful. But people tell me it is, and people tell me they have a good experience. I don't know, mixed bag over here. Different strokes.
I mean,
yeah, our districts kind of look like a Rorschach test.
I was telling some on the podcast, like, we can appeal to Trump's ego for a universal basic income, because whatever has his name on, whatever has his brand on it, and it's funny because some of our GOP people are showing more resistance to just helping people with money than even Trump himself. And that is so disappointing and grotesque. But sometimes appealing to the ego of Trump and what he has to say, it kind of helps. And for our cause. And then there's also, and the hard thing is about our people running for Congress is that, like, all the incumbents have so much money to just drown their things in their media, in their media. So it's not that people don't agree with the basic income, candidates that were running. It's like they can't even get reached by them because it takes so much money. So that's a problem that we're trying to work around.
But
that's why we have the Testify for UBI project.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, we do have that. I was just gonna say, like, part of the thing is Andrew Yang activated so many people who have never even, I'm one of them, who never even knew much about politics. Okay, like even the structure of, like, I didn't want to learn about it. I didn't want to pay attention to it. And so right now, a lot of the activists that are finally like, I'm ready, have a learning curve, right? So right now, I think people are learning. I mean, there's people on boards, they've never been on boards before. There's people who are door knocking for the first time, phone banking for the first time. You know, there's a learning curve to it all. And I think that's like what Yang, when he dropped out though, people are like, oh crap, I can't just follow him anymore. I got to do something on my own time. And I think because we activated so many people on an individual level, that means we might actually infiltrate our own social networks and reach to our own people, because like that's where one would start if they're brand new to something. But you know, it's groups like this where we can talk things out and educate each other that grow the movement quicker, because you curb the learning curve. You know,
I think most of us here were just activated by Andrew Yang. I'd never done anything other than vote before Andrew Yang. You know, I would vote and I would make the occasional political post on Facebook. Very productive. That's it before Andrew Yang. And then, you know, I did try a little phone banking, not my thing. So I did this.
Before Andrew Yang, I was extremely politically active in this country, but it was just like screaming into a void. That's what it was. I was screaming into a void. Like I couldn't, like no one was listening. But then after that, it's like I found, like, you know, such an amazing community, and I've never felt better. It's like, yeah.
That's the thing too. We finally found each other, because I think we are all independently lonely in our own worlds, drowning on because there was no purpose. There was no purpose for us. And I think because we managed to find each other, we've been cheerleaders to each other. You know, we've been the friends. We're peers, we're coaches, we're mentors, we're everything we've needed to feel happy and secure emotionally, to even handle the load, because it gave us back some of that mental bandwidth. And you know, we still have the financial issues. Like our whole crew is broke. Okay, we're all broke. We're volunteering our time because that's how much passion we have. And I think if it wasn't for each other, I don't know how strong we'd be.
Well, I mean, not all of us. Obviously, like Jack Dorsey, you know, who's in huge support of UBI. He's definitely not broke.
Well,
but, Maggie, you've been trying to speak for a while.
What?
Maggie, did you have something to say?
No, I was just going to endorse what Faye said. You know, we found each other, and that's.
We'd like to hear you speak though, while we have you.
So it's good to sort of reach out across the ocean and say hi.
Yeah.
Do you guys have groups like this, like podcast groups that are kind of think tanks?
Yeah, I'm not a huge podcast listener, I have to say, but Martin probably listens because he's younger than me. But yeah, certainly there are lots of think tank podcasts. I'm sure, absolutely sure of it.
So I think there's probably less so than in America, really. I mean, I always see America and people doing podcasts and popping it with YouTube channels and all sorts. And there's a lot more independent media, a lot more, you know, there's not really that much here. And I do always think that sort of media, different channels and people on YouTube would be much better. And I think that's something that possibly you could help us with. So maybe if we could feed in with more
we'll be very glad to help you. I mean, I'm an audio engineer myself. Anything you need with sound, I'll be very happy to talk your ear off about, or just
Also,
help you with sound production.
Because we've done lots of like webinars and things like that, and we've invited speakers along, and there's been a lot of stuff on Zoom that we've done where you've had you invite someone along, they speak for 20 minutes or so, then there's a question and answer session, that sort of stuff that happens, but it's only a sort of a set event rather than like a regular podcast or a regular show. So I see people like I forgot what it's called. The Rationalist, Rational National or something, Rational something. Anyway, him on YouTube, I see him at the time doing a lot of stuff. But there isn't really people like that in the UK. They always belong to a political party, and there are always people like Owen Jones, for example, who writes in the Guardian. It's good. There's a lot of stuff and there's a lot of commentary, but it's political party based. And that independent side, an independent streak, is something that really needs to be tapped into, because there's loads of people who aren't political. In terms of our vote share that we have sort of 65% of people vote generally in our general election. That's 35% of people don't even vote, which is a sad indictment of the political system that we have, that we're not engaging with a third of all people. And
that is still, if I can jump in real quick, 65% is fucking massive turnout. You guys get 65%. I mean, in America, we dream of hitting 65%.
I'm not sure. Have we ever? Yeah.
But in general, in local elections, it can be 30%, 40%. But yeah,
it's better than us too.
Sort of what 60% really is what we get in general elections. So, but even them 60% of people that do vote, people are holding their nose because there's only a limited number of parties. And it's worse in America when you've only got two, really.
Yeah, we have a binary.
Oh God, yeah.
And if you see, our binary system leads to polls like
polarization,
more for Joe Biden or more against Donald Trump, and vice versa. And they're like the negative energy by the math, like more than doubles the positive in this election. It's terrible, and it really reflects the actual state of the country and the culture and the level of pessimism and despair and frustration we're experiencing. It's terrible.
You guys know. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so our electoral system, say for example, Martin's part of the Green Party, we have one Green MP, and yet how many millions? Martin will know how many millions actually voted Green in the election, but because we're divided up into little areas and it's first past the post system, it's monstrously unfair. So people, as you can't, I would like to vote Green in my area. The Green person didn't stand a chance of getting in, so I voted Labour. Which I was sort of happy to do, but it's just that I would like to vote for who I actually want to vote for, and that to come.
I understand way we feel about
yeah. If we do that, here when I had that conversation with people, they say, it is incumbent upon you, Shale, to vote strategically. You must vote for Joe Biden, or else you're voting for Donald Trump. I'll say no. I just cannot bring it upon myself to vote for the architect of the private prison system we have here. I'm just not a Joe Biden fan in that way. I'm just not a private prison sort of guy. So I'm not going to do it. And they're like, you traitor, you are voting for Trump. No, I'm voting for Howie Hawkins and the Green Party. No, he's not going to win. But our system doesn't function if we vote against a candidate. It is not designed at all systemically to work if we do that. So I'm just going to do the system, which is a shitty system, but I'm going to use it the way it's intended, at least. And, that is me doing the right thing, I believe. That's how I respond to people who say, you traitor. If you're not voting for Joe Biden, you're going to put Trump back in the White House. I mean, that's my primary is that. My secondary is that, is Trump really worse than Biden? They're just different monsters. Like Biden is the head of a terrible mafia and Trump is a supervillain. Who do you really, who's really worse? I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah, well, that's why, lots of the European countries, I mean, some of them have 8, 9, 10 parties, and it's sort of split out, some 7%, some 12%, but you have to form a coalition and a compromise, and you do bring more people in, and all of the countries that have proportional representation always have a higher turnout because you're bringing more people in. But we're far off that because going back to a previous comment made about sort of the exporting of different systems, Great Britain did export their political system out to lots of countries, and America is one of them, with sort of electoral colleges and things, voting different ways, and first past the post system. So as well as the financial sector, it's also the democracy that the UK has decided to export, and in other countries around the world with the British Empire, former colonies, their countries often still have remnants of a very antiquated system. It's completely outdated, and it just doesn't suit or does suit them, people who want to be corrupt and money launder and do all sorts of other things. But it's just it's fundamental things need to be formed.
I'm sure that the elite in the UK and the elite in the US are just best buddies that really don't care about the people. You know, like it just seems like, because like Thatcher and Reagan, they were like this. I mean, you know, what are you gonna say? Like,
well, Boris is our baby Trump, obviously.
right? They look like brothers. I mean, like, yeah, Boris was born in New York.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although the interesting thing about Boris is, what scares me is he is a lot smarter than Trump. He just downplays it. So that's one thing that, you know, you guys can say is, you have like a mini Trump, but he actually has a brain, versus Trump, who really just, you know, is attracted to shiny objects.
He's a bath toy out of control.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Right. But by the way, did we ever have any like Basic Income Canada or UK people on Paget's channel? Because she's like one of our biggest kind of like basic income stars here in the US, and she lives near where I do.
Aside from her fiance, who's from the UK,
yeah.
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
Although, just don't let Paget ever do UK accent, because she's so terrible at it.
Right. Yeah. She tries to make fun of her fiance.
Doesn't she have an acting background too?
Yes.
Yes, she does.
And then
Her
doesn't do
show
accents.
that she wrote and produced, Cat Loves LA, has been an ongoing thing up until COVID.
Oh, cool. Okay.
All right. But you're always welcome to come on my YouTube channel. I mean, like, yeah.
I think the thing is, we need to cross over into different people's podcasts, because it's like jumping into different social networks, and people have, we're all a cheat sheet for something, right? We're all experts in something. We have our niches, and we're like, yeah, I know all this stuff. And if you have engaging conversations with a plethora of people, especially outside of your social network, your impact goes farther. And if we're directing the conversation back to UBI all the time, I mean, it would help.
We drifted a bit.
Well, everything is connected to UBI, so I think it's okay to drift. In fact, let me ask, while I have you, I want to ask if I can indulge you in a quick personal question. That's not super personal, not like not for you, but for me. My favorite band, and one that incorporates a lot of universal human and primitive sort of themes about like fundamental humanity, that sort of seems to be underlying and connecting us in spite of a sort of terrible apocalyptic feeling kind of end stage capitalism we're all experiencing. My very favorite band right now is Everything Everything, a band out of Manchester. I just want to ask if you guys have ever heard of them, or know. You heard of them? I don't know.
Cool. What?
Everything Everything. All right. That's fair. That's fine. Sort of math rock.
Sadly not, unfortunately.
That's fair. All right. Well,
you
that
said
was
Manchester. I thought you were going to talk about the Stone Roses and people like that.
I will thank you for indulging me. I will yield the rest of my time.
Well, it's about 2 hours now. Do we want to wrap up?
I have to go.
Oh, we can't end on that. Now we have to. It's fine. sorry for that. Thank you both for coming. Hey, listen, you're welcome to come back anytime. And if you'd like to be, we would love to have you as regulars if you have it in you. You say you want to look for an independent podcast like this one, you're more than welcome to join this one. We're always looking for more regulars.
Sure.
So anytime you'd like to come back, just please stay in touch. We mostly coordinate on a Twitter, a group DM. So if you'd like to join that, more than welcome. Please do. Also, we have a Discord
We'll
channel.
definitely be reaching out to you as well.
Okay. So
our petition's in October time when we will go to the council. So if we maybe could come back then after, hopefully it's successful, and then we would be the 5th place in England, and
we'll coordinate a big Twitter hashtag.
That'd be great.
We are really good at Twitter trends. We can pull them off as the Yang Gang. We're so on top of it.
Live in Brighton. They probably do have to live in the UK, I'm thinking. But
well, if the people in Brighton don't vote for what you guys stand for, they're probably not that bright.
Oh, Ariel.
Well, thank you for just ending it with something with a joke or like a segment worse than mine. It fell more flat. So thank you, Ariel.
I would like to say that there's a lot of Yang Gang that were active during the campaign that are Yang Gang UK. So you may want to search them out as well. They may be already with you, or if they haven't been reactivated, definitely hit them up.
Okay. All right, guys. It's been really, really cool meeting you all.
Yeah,
Thank
same
you,
here.
Thank you
guys.
again for coming. It was lovely
Thank
meeting
you.
you both. I hope to see you again.
Right.
And
Thank
thank
you
you for
very
your
much.
work. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you as well.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See.